Hello and welcome to the Hindu editorial discussion. My name is Ryan Pinto and I'm going to discuss with you the editorials of December 15, 2020. The topics that we are going to discuss in today's editorial is Paris Climate Summit and India, which is going to be part of the environment. Second is regulation on tech giants. So, Paris Climate Summit and India, environment, regulation on tech giants. It is going to be part of economics, or you can also use it in science and technology. Malnourishment, which is a social issue, GS paper 1, GS paper 2, and taxation on MNCs, again part of economics. So, a lot of issues which is covering economics, that is on regulation on tech giants and MNCs. So the first topic that we are going to see is the Paris Climate Summit, which happened in 2015 in Paris, and it has to become in force in 2020. So let's see what is the issue on Paris Climate Summit and today's time of global warming and the climate issues. This is a very important issue which is not only important for the government exams, but also we as human beings and our existence today depends on this. So, green over brown. So, the editorial talks about green over brown, that is more of forest rather than the material things that we have. India's climate goals are on track, but future investments must be sustainable. So the whole editorial is on this, that we have done well, we have done a lot to see to it that we are achieving our climate goals which have been said in the Paris Climate Summit, but the future course of action needs to be much more sustainable. India asserted at the virtual Climate Ambition Summit. So recently there was a Climate Ambition Summit, co-convened by the United Nations to mark 5 years of Paris Agreement, that it is well on its way to not just fulfilling its national pledge on emission reduction, but exceeding the commitment. What happened in the Paris Climate Summit was every country came up with its own strategy, with its own national pledge, how much it wants to. There was nothing given by a blanket, you can say a blanket rule by the Paris Climate Summit that every country has to reduce this much only. So it was left upon the countries and it depended on the countries to country. The performance outlined by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi rests primarily on the estimated present reduction of emissions intensity by 21% over 2005 levels. Okay, so what is our estimate, or what is our commitment? The goal is between 33% and 35% of GDP by 2030. So we are going to reduce our carbon output, or the carbon that we release, we are going to reduce by 33 to 35% by 2030. And we have reached this, that is, we have reached our target till 21%. So we have 10 years more to go and 21% has already reached. So that is the performance that Narendra Modi was speaking on this Climate Ambition Summit. The Emissions Gap Report 2020 of UNEP includes India among 9 G20 members who are on track to achieve their commitments under the Paris Pact. So these are the good points. So positive points, Climate Ambition Summit, you must remember, we are at 21% of the goal that was given to us, and Emission Gap Report gives us that we are the 9th country. The brief reduction in global greenhouse gas emissions brought about by the pandemic has given all countries an opportunity to review their development strategies or trajectories. So the COVID-19 has also given us a boost to reduce the global greenhouse gas. India faces a particular challenge in moving its pandemic rehabilitation spending away from traditional brown sector policies aligned with fossil fuel to green territory. So we have a traditional, or you can say a particular challenge. See, one thing you must remember, energy is important for a country's growth. And country like India, where there are so many poor people, we need energy so that we can give employment. And at the moment, the renewable energy does not have that capacity to fill that energy gap that we have. We will have to fall on thermal energy and the other energy, which is going to create pollution. So we are in a vicious circle. Now, that is how you have to look at this editorial. At the recent summit, Mr. Modi took credit of expansion of forest, which according to the national pledge under the Paris Agreement will serve as a carbon sink of 2.5 to 3 billion. A forest has been increased. We are on track to reduce our the goal we had. We are on track to reach that goal, reduce our carbon output. So these are all good points. This is a key goal given that it has multiple benefits: protecting biodiversity, influencing the climate system, and providing resources for communities. So how does the forest help us? So just remember, forest helps us in the protecting of, or you can say protecting the biodiversity, influence climate system, and provide source for the community. Center has questioned the veracity of state for afforestation data and said only a fourth of the claims they made were deemed credible. Clearly, without a cohesive policy on verifiable afforestation, carbon sink approach may yield poor dividends, with questions hanging over the spending. So there is one issue: the center has questioned the state's afforestation data. So we have expansion of forest happening, which will take 2.5 billion to 3 billion tons of carbon. Next, this is going to be useful for us, but there is one issue that the states have not given proper data. The next is achieving 100 gigawatts of solar power capacity within the overall renewable goals from 36 gigawatts now needs a step scale up that must actively promote rooftop solar installations. So we are going to install we are going to have 100 gigawatts of solar power capacity. Currently it is 36. When it reaches to 100, just imagine we will be having such a large amount of energy or electricity which is going to be free, which is going to not hurt the environment, and it is also going to help us grow. So this is a positive that you have to take in 100 gigawatts of solar power capacity. Next is the transport related emissions. So when we talk about transport related emissions, we must understand where the transport is another issue. Transport is a very big, you can say, source of carbon dioxide that we have. As I have said, transport is very crucial, and it is a big source of carbon dioxide. But the issue received little support from states which failed to reorder cities for cycling and pedestrianization. So, transport is a very important sector that needs to be looked at because it is a big emitter of carbon dioxide. Large scale agricultural insurance against climate disasters also need attention. So the areas that we have touched upon is the global warming, second is the forest, then we have spoken about the 100 gigawatts of solar power capacity, and transport sector also agricultural insurance need to be taken care of. So, in conclusion, in the year that remains before countries meet at the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in 2021, India needs to focus on future emissions and plan green investments that qualify for global climate funding. So, we are on the track. Recent the climate ambition summit that was there, Narendra Modi has said that we are going to reach. We have a 21% intensity. Okay, But we need to do more and see to it that we can not only achieve this goal, but also can expand our goal, for which green investments are necessary. So the next editorial that we are going to see is on the tech giants like Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon, how they are affecting the economy, how their monopoly is destroying some people's employment and industry as well as economy. So we are going to talk about these huge tech giants. The photo is there on the screen. Firing a warning shot across big tech bows. So what has happened is lawsuits and regulatory moves in the West suggest that their easy, unchecked expansion may be coming to an end. Okay, so we have seen these tech giants are growing so rapidly and so huge that it is engulfing all the other companies and destroying all the other companies. This is against the policy of competition. Despite the growing monopoly power of big tech and their use of anti competitive practices, earlier attempts to regulate them, such as the attempt by US Department of Justice in 1998 to rein in Microsoft, had only limited success. So the monopoly is increasing, and in the United States they are not being able to check these huge companies. We are going to link it with India later. Timelines and actions. A rash of lawsuits and regulatory moves in the United States and Europe against the big non Chinese digital companies, particularly Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Google, suggests that the days of their easy expansion in an unregulated environment may be coming to an end. So many people have started realizing this and have started going to the courts in regards to the unlawful practices they are following. In December 2020, the Department of Justice, remember, Department of Justice brought a lawsuit against Google for misusing its dominant position as search engine by undermining competitors, favoring its own content in, in search results, doing deals with other companies to become the default search engine, and then using data on its users and competitors to reinforce its dominance. So remember how Google works, or what are the problems Google is doing. First of all, undermining competitors, favoring its own content, doing deals with other companies so that Google becomes the default engine in many browsers and device, and then using data of its users and competitors to reinforce its dominance. So this is how uh, the Google company and the other tech giants work and try to dominate and earn a lot of profit. In early December, the US Federal Trade Commission and 48 states, the District of Columbia and Guam, sued Facebook. So we have seen what was the problem with the Google. Now let's see. They sued Facebook, accusing it of abusing its market power in social networking to crush smaller competitors. So we had seen Google is trying to tie up and create dominance and have its own base, etc. Even Facebook is trying to crush smaller competitors. The specific instance of Facebook acquisition of WhatsApp and Instagram were cited. Now, Facebook's favorite act is to take up any company which is smaller and which it thinks is going to be competition. So Facebook has acquired WhatsApp and then later even Instagram. The FTC complaint cites a Mark Zuckerberg email of June 2008. It is better to buy than compete. So Mark Zuckerberg had put in his email, rather than compete, it is better to buy. And this is what Facebook is doing, collaborate and becoming big and destroying competition. He noted that Facebook can likely always just buy any competitive startups. By 2012, just before buying Instagram, he said, The photo and video sharing app could be very disruptive to us if allowed to grow independently. The purchase of WhatsApp 2 years later similarly reflected concerns that instant messaging service could become the favored social media over Facebook. So, as we had seen earlier, Mark Zuckerberg had said it is easier to buy, and thus he bought WhatsApp. Before buying Instagram, what did we see? What was the motive? He said the photo and video sharing app could be very disruptive to us. The wrath of Mark. So we have seen how Google works and tries to dominate, and what Facebook is doing. So when he was buying Instagram, we will see the founder Kevin Systrom, founder of Instagram, he had asked, "Will he go into destroy mode if I say no?" Instagram founder Kevin Systrom is cited as having asked an investor when considering Facebook's offer. Bottom line, I don't think we'll ever escape the wrath of Mark. It just depends on how long we avoid it. So we can exactly see even the Instagram founder is skeptical about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, and he knows, other companies know, that Facebook will come one day to incorporate or buy these companies, or else it will try to destroy these companies. This wrath was expressed by using Facebook's huge user base in bait and switch. What Facebook does is offers newer app or website developers various incentives, such as allowing them to use like buttons that promoted their sites or apps to Facebook users, which also meant that Facebook could then gather more data on these activities. When the new app and emerged as possible threat, Facebook would stop this access and thereby destroy its ability to attract a new user base. So first allow them to use, create that app, take their data, and then stop it if they are dangerous. Amazon. Now we have seen Google, how it works. We have seen how Facebook works, how it is disrupting the market. Let's see how what Amazon does. Amazon functions as a gatekeeper for e-commerce, reducing competition and thereby also harming consumers. It has exploitative relationship with other sellers on the platform, which live in fear of the company, and which Amazon refers to internal competitors. Sellers are not allowed to contact shoppers directly. So in Amazon, you must have noticed you can't speak to the sellers directly. So thus, Amazon itself thinks these sellers are its competition, often limited in their ability to sell on other platforms, face strong arm tactics in negotiation, and have to choose between getting atrocious levels of customer service or better service for a fee. So Amazon has a lot of domination over the sellers. Like the other companies, Amazon profits from ideas and products developed by others and simply buys up startups for even open source cloud software developers when it wants. So like other companies buys them. We have seen Facebook doing it, Google doing it. The last company is Apple. So we have seen what Google does by tying up with other browsers and by making itself as the default service by showing its own products, etc. We've seen what Facebook does. Facebook tries to dominate by switch and bait. We have seen what Amazon does, tries to dominate over their sellers. Apple also favors its own apps and seeks to put rivals at a disadvantage on its products and leaves developers with little choice for reaching consumers. Like Google, it levies high commission fees. So it levies, high commission fees of 30% that end up being charged on consumers. So Apple has 30% of commission being charged, and then later it is going on the consumers. The two companies are voracious purchasers of companies. So Facebook, Apple also, and Amazon too are voracious purchasers of company. Over the past few years, Google has also brought at least one firm a month. Apple buys one every two or so. So the European Union has separately filed a case against Amazon and Google. Earlier this summer, it opened two antitrust cases against Google. It is planning to change the regulatory regime to prevent anti competitive practices exhibited. So, we have seen how Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, how they are destroying the market. The dangers of these aggressive monopolies are not confined to competitors, users also suffer. It is not only just to the competitors, users also suffer in this monopoly because of fewer options and weaker privacy controls. All these companies hoard the data they collect, which increasingly covers all aspects of their lives. For many of them, data are now biggest source of revenue and profit. All sorts of use can be made of the data: marketing, targeted advertising, influencing and manipulating political outcomes, targeting individuals based on particular criteria, enabling surveillance. So it is not only affecting the competitors but also the users and the country or the society as a whole. The idea in both US and EU is to break up these companies. For example, by forcing Facebook to divest both WhatsApp and Instagram, much as the telecom giant AT&T was forced to break up in early 1980s. More regulation is clearly required in addition to the lawsuits. Now we have seen the Indian angle. So we saw the four companies, what they are doing. Then we saw how they are not only affecting the competitors but also the society. And one step can be like in 1988, AT&T was forced to divest, that is, sell off their companies. That this can also be done. The Indian angle is relevant. More than 400 million of WhatsApp, estimated 2 billion users are in India. So for in WhatsApp, there are 2 billion users, 400 million are in India. Amazon has one third of the share of the online retail in India, neck and neck with Flipkart, that was recently acquired by Walmart. So one third of its share of the Indian online market is by Amazon. India is Facebook's largest single market with around 270 million accounts. Google completely dominates the search engine space in India, and most smartphones in India are Android based. And now Facebook and Google are collaborating with India's largest telecom company, Reliance Jio, owned by Mukesh Ambani, to create a single gateway of Indians for Indians, providing everything from information, news media, entertainment to daily purchase of groceries, sundry services. So it's going to be completely under one roof by monopoly, and users will get hurt a lot. Apart from their market dominance, another concern is costly relationship of these companies they have established with the ruling party in the country, and the willingness to adopt the different standards of fact checking and privacy in India so as to benefit the powerful. Reports suggest that Facebook has been unwilling to remove incendiary and violent content for fear of backlash from Hindu nationalist politicians and stormtroopers. Now this is a very dangerous situation because of the connection with the ruling party, with the government in power in India, and the ideology they spread, and the danger it can have to the credentials of our country and our constitution. So, in conclusion, this is not helped by the fact that India still does not have a privacy law. One thing we must remember, still today India does not have a privacy law. Even though Supreme Court declared privacy to be a fundamental right some years ago, The proposed bill is extremely weak and adequate safeguards are there. It is time Indians to wake up and realize the antitrust regulation and public control over digital companies, including homegrown ones, have become critical for them. So we saw how Google, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook is dominating, how they destroy the economy, how they destroy the, not the economy actually, the competition in the economy, and become very powerful, and its relevance to India. What steps can we take? The next important article or editorial is on malnourishment. So we have seen editorial just now on the tech giants. Now we are going to focus on malnourishment. Now when we talk about malnourishment, we also should be focusing on stunting and wasting. Okay, so stunting is reduction of weight according to the height. So when you have a proper age, you should have a proper weight, but or height, you should have a proper weight. So that's stunting. And according to the height, you're not growing your weight, that's called as wasting. India needs to rethink its nutrition agenda. Poor nutritional outcomes in National Family Health Survey 5 show that piecemeal approach does not work. So there has been the release of the report of National Family Health Survey 5. This report is given out by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It has released data fact sheets for 22 states and union territories. So just remember, National Family Health Survey is released by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. 22 states UTs have given out the details. Some of them, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Punjab, some states like Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Punjab, UP, Jharkhand, Odisha and MP have not given the data, and these are very important states, so just remember. But still there are some worrying finds. 22 states and UTs, there is an increase in the prevalence of acute malnourishment or malnutrition. Kerala and Karnataka are the only states among the 6 states and UTs where there is some decline. So first point you must remember, there is increase in malnutrition. The percentage of children under 5 who are underweight has also increased in 16 out of 22 states. So you have to remember, percentage of children under 5, the malnourishment has increased, the underweight has increased. Anemia levels among children as well as adult are also worrisome. So we are seeing acute malnutrition, underweight, anemia. So when we talk about malnourishment, just remember these are the points you should touch on. Malnutrition you must touch on, underweight and anemia. Okay, so just remember these important points. There is also an increase in prevalence of other indicators such as adult malnutrition, measured by those having a body mass index of less than 18.5 kilograms per meter square in many states and UTs. So now the next topic we are going to see is on stunting. So we saw malnutrition, what is the situation? Underweight. The last one we had seen was anemia. Now we are talking about stunting. So stunting is a very important concern. Stunting is according to the age you are not growing in height. That is stunting. Okay, and wasting according to the height there is no proper weight. So you have to remember the difference between stunting and wasting. Stunting, again I'll repeat, according to the age there is no proper height. What is the matter of concern is most of the states UTs also see an increase in overweight, obesity prevalence amongst children and adults. So when you talk about malnourishment, it also includes obesity and overweight. The data report an increase in childhood stunting, an indicator of chronic undernutrition and considered a sensitive indicator of overall well-being. Poshan Abhiyan, this is very important. Poshan Abhiyan One of the flagship programs of the Prime Minister launched in 2017 aimed at achieving a 2 percentage, or you can say parts per reduction, uh, parts percentage reduction in childhood stunting per year. So percentage points, actually 2 pp is percentage points reduction to be reduced. So we will be seeing stunting is around 38%, wasting is around 21%, and the aim is to reduce stunting and wasting 2 percentage points. Initial results of National Family Health Survey 5 are that we are likely to see an increase in prevalence of childhood stunting during the period 2015-16 to 2019-20. This is extremely alarming and calls for serious introspection. At the time where our GDP is increasing and we are talking to be a superpower, our stunting is increasing. So that's a very alarming situation. The World Health Organization calls stunting a marker of inequalities of human development. So just remember, first of all, stunting. What is the meaning of stunting? Stunting is according to the age, the height is not increased. Poshan Abhiyan was brought in 2017 to reduce the percentage, but the percentage has increased. And stunting is a marker of inequality. Over the last 3 decades, there have been phases where India has experienced high rates of economic growth, but this period has also seen increasing inequality, informalization of labor force, and reducing employment elasticity. Expansion in social protection schemes and public programs such as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, PDS, the Public Distribution System, the Integrated Child Development Scheme, ICDS, and school meals have contributed to some amount of reduction in absolute poverty as well as improvements in nutrition indicators. So, what are the some of the steps you must remember? Manrega, PDS, ICDS, midday meal scheme, etc. And also remember Poshan Abhiyan. So we saw what are the issues. The issues touched are malnourishment, malnutrition, underweight, anemia, stunting, overweight, adult malnutrition, and what are the steps that has improved the situation. In a response to a parliamentary question in December 2019, Minister for Women and Child Development presented a data which showed that only 32.5% of the funds released for Poshan Abhiyan from 2017 to 18 onwards has been utilized. So one of the biggest issue here is the underutilization of the funds, which is just 32.5%. Now, what are the reasons? The last few years, particularly, have been bad with slowdown in economic growth, stagnant rural wages, highest levels of unemployment. So, we have seen more of informalization happening, more of unemployment, more of stagnant rural uh, wages, and slow down the economic growth. Rising number of reported starvation death from different parts of the country. Field surveys such as the recent Hunger Watch are already showing massive levels of food insecurity and decline in food consumption, especially from the poor and vulnerable households. So the Hunger Watch, this has done a field survey which shows massive level of food insecurity. The National Family Health Survey 5 fact sheets, which also presents data related to health, nutrition, and other socio-economic indicators, show positive trends as well. There are some improvements in the determinants of malnutrition, such as access to sanitation, clean cooking fuel, and women's status, a reduction in spousal violence, and a greater access to women to bank accounts. So, we have seen the negative points. Some positive points, if you have to mention or remember: sanitation, clean cooking fuel, women's status due to reduction in spousal violence and greater access of women to bank accounts. So we have seen a piecemeal approach to malnourishment cannot be taking place. We saw what are the problems, we saw what are the numbers which are there, some positive points, but a piecemeal approach cannot be. We have seen government release just 32.5% of the total money. So funds need to be given. Direct interventions such as supplementary nutrition of good quality, including eggs, fruits, etc., should be made. Growth monitoring and behavioral change communication through ICDS and school meals must be strengthened. Universal maternity entitlements and child care services to enable breastfeeding, appropriate infant and young child feeding, as well as towards recognizing women's unpaid work burdens have been on the agenda for long. So, how can we improve it? You can use it in your answers. Supplementary nutrition like eggs, growth monitoring, behavior change communication, universal maternity entitlements, and appropriate infant and child feeding services. Linkage between agriculture and nutrition should also be recognized through what foods are produced and available, as well as what kinds of livelihoods are generated. So, just focusing on rice and wheat will not do. Other nutritional foods also should be focused on. Basic determinants of malnutrition, household food security, access to basic health services, and equitable gender relations cannot be ignored. So remember household food security, access to basic health, and equitable gender relation. So in conclusion, we can see an employment centered growth strategy which includes universal provision of basic services for education, health, food, and social security is imperative. There have been indications in our country that business as usual is not sustainable anymore. And the last editorial today is on tax laws, tax policy in trying times, that is on the MNCs. So we saw first editorial which was based on, or which was focusing on the tech giants, Google and the others. Then we saw the malnourishment editorial. Now we are going to see the editorial on taxing policies. The events of the pandemic show it is the need of the hour to modernize our archaic tax laws. As a result of the pandemic induced lockdown, India's GDP contracted consecutively for 2 quarters. So, because of the pandemic, COVID 19, the India's GDP has actually reduced. Some have gained from the pandemic. You must be thinking during the pandemic, who must have gained? It is India's super rich. They became richer. Between January and June 85, between January and June, 85 new Indians were added to the list of high net worth individuals. While this happened, the economy was on the verge of plunging into recession. You can see the difference. On one side, we have people getting inside the high net worth individuals. On the other side, our economy is going into recession. How is this possible? The third set of gainers are the corporate houses, internet service providers, laptop makers, and scientists engaged in medical research. So, who gained is the super rich, high net worth individuals, the corporate houses, internet service providers, laptop makers, medical research people, and the final ones were manufacturers of masks, personal protective equipment, PPEs. Indian dealers have taken to this business like fish to water. But for most of the country, the pandemic led to unemployment and increase in poverty levels. So, was it a rosy picture for everybody? No. It has led to unemployment. Pure economics dictate big fiscal stimulus at the time of falling GDP. So, if you follow economics, you must remember during this time where the demand is low, fiscal stimulus has to be done. But what did the government do? The government started credit easing, and the government started showing fiscal consolidation by giving out loans. The fiscal stimulus was provided in stages at merely 2% of the GDP. Japan has given fiscal stimulus of 21%, Brazil 10%, China 7%, India just 2% of the GDP. Taxing the MNCs. Now, taxing the MNCs are very, very important. Corporate, now since government must have said we don't have the money, so we can't give the money, but it can be done by taxing the MNCs. Corporate profits have risen sharply. The taxation of MNCs has become a perennial problem. Digital taxation has to be amended. So, what can we do to get more money from the MNCs and they don't make too much of profit by looting the, or you can say, uh, or by earning lot of profits and becoming dominant. Digital taxation has to be amended in accordance with UN model convention. There is need to act for India to act in sync with the OECD. Canada plans to levy new taxes on foreign technology companies to increase the government's revenues. Tax avoidance by global web companies has become acute because of digitalization. In the field of indirect taxes, the government has been vigorously following whether MNCs are passing on the benefits of tax reduction to the consumers. So, what are the areas we need to look at? Taxation of MNCs, digital taxation, tax avoidance by global web companies. As per the GST law, any reduction in rate of taxes on the supply of goods has to be passed on to the consumers. So, if the government is reducing the taxes, is it going to the consumers? So, there is anti profiteering rules in the GST. So, remember, taxation of MNCs, digital taxation, tax avoidance by global web companies, and uh, transferring of the tax benefits to the final consumers. So, there needs to be a rewriting of the tax laws. India's direct tax needs to keep pace with fast changing events. Finance Minister announced schemes of faceless assessment and faceless appeals. So, what are we doing for changing the tax laws or tax situation? New schemes, faceless assessment, faceless appeals. International Court of Arbitration ruled that Indian government's move to seek taxes from Vodafone using retrospective legislation was against the fairness. So we have new schemes coming up. International Court of Arbitration. It is necessary that a mechanism is found to negotiate settlement. Arbitration settlement needs to be done. Income Tax Act was framed in 1961. It has been amended several times. The government constituted Akhilesh Ranjan Task Force. So remember Akhilesh Ranjan Task Force, and our archaic laws needs to be modernized. So regarding tax, remember the government has brought a new scheme, faceless assessment and faceless appeals. International Court of Arbitration ruled that the Vodafone case was not proper. Negotiation, settlement, arbitration needs to be done. Income Tax Act needs to be amended, and that is why Akhilesh Ranjan Task Force has been created. Thus, we have seen important editorials today focusing on economics and as revise all this and you can put it in your answers. Thank you. Remember, the art and science of asking questions is source of all knowledge.